Morning, ladies and gentlemen. We learned that this microphone works pretty much better than the other one. The first presentation is headed SMPWG activities related to S100 and building the foundation of NP3. I would start my presentation with a little quote, "I have a dream." You know, the person who was saying this, "I have a dream." I have a dream from a mariner's perspective that if a mariner accesses the actor system, then he gets exactly the NPUB information which is fitted for his purpose and for his ship, and he is not being forced to read unnecessary content. That's, let's say, the goal we want to achieve with our SNPVAC work. And who knows what NP3 means? Even knows it. Pardon? Yeah, what is, but NP3, we have NP1, NP2, NP3. So we will try to figure it out during the presentation now, that you get an idea what NP3 means. So NP3 is a prerequisite for publication which are integrated into actor systems. But before we start, has anyone had time during the evening to learn and to examine this formula? No. So you make the next try tomorrow. The objectives are the discussion of what is NP1, what is NP2, and what is NP3, and how we want to proceed with NP3. So if you don't know what NP3 is, who knows what NP1 is? So just a moment. Anything wrong? Okay. Yeah. This is NP1. You know, printed books. NP1 are printed publications, and you can see it as it is here, and you have difficult and depends on how the book is written, you might have more or less difficult to access the correct data which fits for your vessel. So this has now been written in Korean and in English, so I would have problems to read the Korean version. I would prefer to read the English version. We have publications in Germany which are entirely in German, so it would be a hidden world for a person who is not familiar with German. And I learned that Malaysia is producing same directions, and Indonesia as well. And you write this in Indonesian language, not in English language. So it would be impossible for a foreigner to access the data. They have to rely on data which is published by other hydrographic offices and probably in English. And this publication, which is being published in English, is just a replicate, or it is an extract of what you have written. They could not copy your content one-to-one. So this is a problem. So they could not copy the little, let's say, pieces in your language which might be important for explaining the one or the other thing. So in Germany we have, we could be artists in writing pieces very short, and it will be impossible for a foreigner to access what it means. So it's clear. If we will write this, or if we would write this in the longer term, then of course it could be translated, but if we do this in a very short term, it's impossible. So what means NP2? NP2 is nothing else than an NP1 in a different format. Let's say we have a digital version of your publication. But it's nothing else than the paper version, but just on a hard copy. And NP3 would be a data set which is compatible with active systems, and this data set provides information which could be accessed by the NP1 and NP2 versions, and the hope and our intention is to make the data more and better accessible for the end user. So NP1 is, of course, heavy prose text. It is relatively difficult to screen the content. The mariner has to fight with georeferenced information and very imprecise relative positions. So we have examples saying a track leads southeast of a drying sandbank, extending southeast from a point in depth of more than 5 meters. Who knows exactly where this is? Nobody. So it's just to check the chart against the book and say, okay, that could be the course they would prefer or what they would recommend to sail. Or south, or as directed by local knowledge towards deeper water south of a particular point. So as directed by local knowledge, who has local knowledge when he sails worldwide? So it's impossible. You cannot build up local knowledge. It's not possible. So that is an issue with which a mariner has to fight at the moment. In NP2, we have the same, more or less the same problem. The mariner is forced to access different medias, different formats. So how familiar are you with HTML, reading of HTML, problems which HTML has, how you are familiar with reading XHTML, PDF, XML files, whatever. It depends entirely of the application you use and the system where you have implemented the data. Some data might work with one system, others might work with a different system. You could not assume that your system will work with an Apple computer and it will work with a Windows computer, or it will work with an Apple and not with a Windows, and there are a lot of different issues. And data provider who provides NP2 products has to be aware that this is a problem for the mariner. And it is also a problem to understand how this NP2 works. What is the intention of the producer? Do you have cross-references? Do you have the capability to search for terms or not? And when you switch from, let's say, from one vessel to another vessel, you might switch the systems. You have to learn again. The learning curve might be steep or not so steep. So that's a lot of problems can be found when you try to read an NP2 product. An NP2 product must be still read it completely. You have no customization of your information. So this is just a replica of the paper version, and it's up to you how deep you want to go into this system. NP3. NP3 is entirely different. So NP3 is a database based on, hopefully, on a SNPVec data model, and but accessing the data would be more simple for the end user. You see here on the right-hand side is an example. It's a mock-up of a menu which could be, which provides an idea how you could access the data, which is provided by Nautic Publications, and but the prerequisite for this data would be you need a scope. You have to discuss the scope of what you intend to see and what you intend to provide to the end user. If you have defined your scope, then you need the data frame where you would build, or where you would build your publications on. You have to define a specific data format. That's obvious. With no data format, no data. And the most challenge for the data provider is to assign the geometry, the information to a geometry. So we have had a very, let's say, painful experience at the BSH with assigning geometry to an information. So if you say we have this and this situation in front of the breakwaters, who knows where is in front of the breakwaters? Is it just off the breakwaters? Is it up to a distance of 1 mile, 2 miles? Is it between half a mile and a mile? Nobody knows exactly. The written book combined with the chart will give you, let's say, a mental indication that you can say, okay, that is somewhere there. But you will not be able to specify explicitly the location where this information is valid. But if you provide such a tool and you want to provide an NP3 data to the mariner, then you have to define the geometry. And believe me or not, that will be the main task for the future if you intend to prepare your publication for this digital world. So that would be the real challenge. So rewriting books or, let's say, modeling the information, it's complicated enough, but it's very simple. Assigning a geometry to this information would be the main challenge. On the right-hand side, that was this. I think this is Wilhelmshaven. It's a German port, and we have specified some main topics, and underneath these main topics, some subtopics to provide a good access of the data to the end user. You might see this slide a little bit later in one of the next presentations, with more details. The data frame is being provided with S100, hopefully, and you have seen this presentation or the slide previously and was explained by Lee. So the IHO is doing everything to provide the correct data frame for the production of this, or for the development of these NP3 products. The data model is being under development by SMPWG and by TSMET. This is an example of a data model we developed for marine protected areas. So it's not necessary to read this, but this is marine protected areas are modeled in a way that you can say we have different categories of marine protected areas, and we have many other attributes which should be assigned to these areas. So that is the point. The data model will be provided by SNIPWEC and by TSMET, and I would be very happy if the East Asian countries who produce sail directions could contribute to our data model. If you, I can only invite you to provide your email addresses of your sail directions editors, and I will put them on the SNIPWEC mailing list just to keep them informed what the progress is. So, and if we get whatever feedback we could get, it would be beneficial for all of us, and that's an invitation. And I would be very pleased that if you would provide a positive answer on it. So actually, we have participants from Japan and from Korea, and they are providing some valuable contributions to the data model, and especially we are now building up not a data model at the moment. We are building up some data samples, and the data samples are the basis for the development of the future product specification. And the product specification can only be so good as the data samples are. If we lost any, let's say, any required reports or whatever, so we will not provide a correct product specification for the mariner, and that would be the worst case. So my invitation is still, please provide me your email address. I will put you on a list, and that you will at least get would be informed. So that's a data model. Again, this is a slightly different diagram, but as Eivind provided yesterday, that is a data model of this MPA product specification. Don't be nervous. That is not so, not what I intend to read for the let's say, participating countries. It is readable by experts, and they know what to do. Eivind. I explained this, marine protected areas. Do we have experts who can read this? Yeah? Eivind, yeah. Ah, Singapore can read this. That's fine. You are welcome to explain each of these. So I still have problems to understand when a diamond is filled and when it's not filled, what that means. So, but I can let flow my inspiration and say, okay, it looks fine and it works. So, and we have really experts who know if it works or not. So, well, that is not the mariner's job. If we have defined a data model for the system, and we have established a data model, and this data model was being proved, then we can say we need some portrayal for these areas, and we developed some proposals, and this is also a learning curve for everybody. So you can provide proposals by saying, "This is our idea. Please use it." You have to be aware that the more symbols you introduce, the more clutter the display. So finally, we decided to not use one of those ideas. The idea was just to provide a green T line or a green dashed line for a marine protected area. To either be the one or the other symbol depends on the use of different attributes, but that's not important for this, let's say, session now. And one prerequisite for transferring the information from NP1 to, without involving NP2 into NP3, is probably the revision of your publication. And maybe you might rewrite your publication in a way that the information is being more focused on the topic. You provide less text, less, let's say, Wikipedia text. So if I would refer to the Korean books later in this week, but there's also a good example where they explained a lot of history of the Busan area, and one can argue saying this is important for the mariner or it's not important for the mariner, but I assume if I want to enter, or if I have to enter the Busan port, I'm not interested in the history of Busan. So I'm more interested in the landmarks, the obstructions, what I have to report to whom. So that would be my attention. So you might try to clear your publication and to remove unnecessary content, just to limit just to limit the quantity of what to model. The data model we developed can please you, and you can easily model also this information, but still you have to maintain it. And you have to check whether it is correct or not. So I think some areas are so dynamic that there are so many changes in very short time, and nobody is really able to maintain this because it's not necessary for the end user. And now we can say, okay, in Germany we have done the work already. They can sit on a very high level and can say, well, they have done it. No, we haven't. We have done some work in Germany with the restructure of our publications, and this is very complicated. It's very, very complicated to do this correctly, and you can play the game, let's say, to the bitter end if you like. So that is no problem. An example is this is the approach to Wilhelmshaven, and on the left hand you might see that is a chart. On the right hand side is the relevant part of the same directions, and you see it here. If I combine a whole section of my same directions and I use it as one part, let's say if is one part to model, then I can assign this one part to the whole area. But I can say easily some of this information in this whole portion of text is related to only a little piece of my fairway. So I try to split this up again, and you might see that this little line here belongs to this part of the fairway, and we have this little line, and this little line belongs to these two areas. We have the next one here in the bottom, which belongs to the wider area here. So you can play it, as I said, up to an end, and the problem is to find the right balance. What you want to provide to the mariner, what you think the mariner want to read when he enters this area. Is it important to provide all information which belongs to this whole fairway, or would it better to say if he enters this area that he needs at first information which belongs to the area here or which belongs to the whole area? So it's slightly difficult, and it's a challenge for you when you try to rewrite your book and to remodel or to model the information to this data model. So let's say the entertaining work at Snipweg and with Nautical Publications for your editors can be a long session, so to say. And that's the end. Any questions? This is actually not clearly defined by the HSSC, how to handle this in the future. We have two different approaches. You can either say the NP3 is simply an overlay of the data, and it works independent from the underlying, or the ENC which is underneath this. So that needs a replication or duplication of certain ENC features just to make a, let's say, if it is entirely independent, it could be survive without an ENC, and you need some ENC features just to have a chart layout or whatever. That is one solution. Another solution would be if this product refers to existing ENC features and using these ENC features. So to say that is just an overlay, it's only the half of the truth. So we have two options at the moment, and actually I'm seeking for endorsement from HSSC to provide this marine protected area product specification, for instance, in these two different ways.
I'm just thinking, is it possible if we develop new S1, let's say S1 or 3 or S1 or 4, or
Yeah, sure. So the last HSS, the numbering of the S10X was not clearly defined in the past. And we were very enthusiastic to say S101 was reserved for the ENC, S102 was reserved for the basimesic data, and I asked for endorsement to say MPA product specification would be S103. Well, we got a lot of noise. And they asked, why do you said that MPA would be 103? And I said, well, first come, first serve. So, and there's no other orders given. And but finally they decide which number would be assigned to which product. And actually that will be part of one of the next presentations. We are providing a couple of product specifications which hopefully covers all nautical publication information. And it is a question, or it is a job of HSSC to assign a correct number. So we might end up with 7 or 8 different product specifications for nautical publication information.
The ones that are rejecting all the when you're going that UK show is the office who monopoly the nautical publication. So far in this forum, how you want UK show to this
Yeah, the UKHO is involved in this discussion. They are involved in the working group, and we have the same approach for nautical publication as we have for ENCs. So the coastal state is responsible for producing the ENC. If they can't do it, then they can assign it to any other organization. That's clear. If it is UKHO, then it's UKHO. But the same would work for the nautical publication. If you provide the data set for your nautical publication in either your language or in English, it could be switched. Then it's your job and your business. So in UKHO, they couldn't say anything because that is a digital data set. It's not a printed book. And the digital data set would be delivered maybe together with the ENC or with in a normal distribution way, let's say. So they can't say anything against this when a coastal state develops the product, let's say the content of the product, and he provides the content of the product for his area.
Thank you for your presentation. I really know about the ENC. ENC is a database. So when principal they provide the postal state, they should provide ENC data
Yeah.
in the sea area.
Yeah.
What about MP3?
Yeah, it's the same. You should.
So, like the UKHO cannot apply some data outside of their sea, but they still can distribute their data including the worldwide.
But what is the point? Why do they do this at the moment? So we are producing, what I said, or just start a different way. Who believes that you can navigate a vessel only with a sea chart? Only with a nautical chart, only with a chart. Who believes that you can navigate a vessel safely only with a chart? No, you can't do it. Who believes that he could navigate a vessel safely only with publications?
I lost the context. You've used paper nautical charts for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Safely.
Yeah.
I don't understand your
Yeah.
context of your question or what you're...
Yeah, you can't navigate your vessel safely only with a chart. It's not possible. You can navigate from A to B. That's probably not a problem, but you have to report, you have to access different information which you need to navigate safely.
You have to look out the window.
And you have to look in a publication for reports, for instance. It's important. So,
From other publications, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, you could not do it with only with a chart, and you cannot do it only publication. You have to have a mix of both. And
maybe it's the choice of words. You should not navigate that way. Unfortunately, there are some that do, but
that's clear, especially sailors. Yeah.
I missed the context.
Yeah. Okay. And if you provide ENCs for your area, UKHO is not doing the same work for Korea again. So they use your ENCs. If you provide nautical publication content for your area, they will not do the work again. They will use your data if they provide a worldwide coverage of their publications, for instance, like the AVCS service or whatever. But this is not, that's not the point. You are responsible for the publication content in your area. And if you provide this, then it's the better is it for the mariner. Tony?
I think it was an interesting question. I think the question relates to will nautical publications be subject to Wayne principles? The Wayne principles determine.
Yeah.
And so this is something that hasn't been discussed yet or hasn't been considered, and I think this is what this question was pointing to.
Yeah. But it would be a logical consequence if publications will follow this Wayne principle. The point is, at the moment, nobody could, except Indonesians, could read Indonesian sail directions. It's not possible. So what you intend to provide to the international shipping, if English is, let's say, the language on the working language aboard the ship, you need to provide an English version of your publication. And we have some evidence from other areas where the UKHO is trying to copy national content, and they didn't reflect this correctly, and there were some issues, and these issues might cause some problems. So, but if you provide this in English language, it would be better. So that's the point. What others do with your information is just an extract, or is their interpretation of your content. So the better would be if you provide the data.
Could you go back to the NPA model?
This one.
If you all remember, I provided a very confusing 3 slides yesterday, and they're difficult to read. What those 3 slides do, they actually provide the rules to make this. And we look at this and we struggle to understand what it says. But all of you who have done EMC production, you have gotten familiar with SIMS S7 EMC data model. So you know which object goes with which chart feature or which information and what attributes is set. That's what's contained here. It's just a different way of parsing the object catalog or the equivalent of the object catalog.
But this is a graphical.
That we don't know the language that is being done in. So I invite you all to spend a little bit of time to find some kind of UML introductory document online or wherever, just to get a little bit more familiar with UML, because UML will be the language of S100. So just to prepare yourself, spend some time on it, because you will need it.
So this is, let's say this was the graphic representation of this list. So we have certain attributes here, and associated information object classes were being introduced for this product, and that is now the graphical layout of the data model. So how works what together?
And the reason I showed 3 slides yesterday was that in the first slide, you could not do what this one does. This data model would be invalid in S100 if you didn't have the changes. You see these lines that go around here. In the first data model, you only have lines from the green box to the blue box. You now have a line from the blue box to another blue box. And that's just a simple change that was done
Yeah.
from the first slide to the second and to the third slide.
Can you point out the in-play feature class there? And just also, so for the enumerated tables, so if you took the enumerated tables away, and also the information types, then it becomes a lot simpler.
Yep. So this box right here is the grade protected area feature
In green.
in the light green. But everything else is additional information to this box. These pink boxes down here, they're attributes. These blue boxes are what would be called shared attributes. It's extra information to this one. And all the lines do is just show you which way you can navigate the information. So a system that would read what you would make your data. These lines restrict or tell you which types of information you can bind together. Kind of like what you do in FTP7, you have a list of attributes that are available for an object.
Yeah, and this is, you should not be getting nervous. That is not the work which let's say the sailors are doing at the SNPWEC. So we are trying to provide this idea. We say we have an area and we have some attributes which would be useful for this area, and we might have some additional information which we want to see in relation to the area, and then we make this layout. So we provide definitions to have to ensure that every little value is being interpreted in the same way by everybody around the world, and afterwards, when we are at the opinion that, or when we have the opinion that this is correct written now, then we ask the expert to create such a UML model. And if this will not be possible with the current S100 version, then they raise their hand and say, well, this is not possible at the moment. We have to make an amendment or proposal for a next revision of the S100 to reflect our demands in modeling this work. So, and this is very important for let's say for the mariners and for the expert to check, especially this content. So it's not necessary to find experts who are able to read the UML. If you could read UML diagrams, it would be fine. If you would be an expert, the better, but it's definitely not necessary. The mariners must become familiar with this stuff. And no, but the mariners at SNPWEC.
Exactly. The hydrographic office should read this.
Yeah.
When you produce your data, you would read this. The mariner would get something more explanatory. He would get this category of restricted area. It wouldn't say category restricted area and what value it is.
Yeah.
So take this one here for a second. Go to the next slide. What that would reflect is one of these boxes reflects the value you can put into that.
Yeah.
Again, for mariners, this is invisible. It doesn't exist.
The mariner will only see that it's an area which is saying, let's say, protected area for seals, for instance.
I would suggest that you will not have to deal with this, because this is what the software developers, implementers will deal with. And you will purchase myself will have to deal with reading or interpreting this. It will have to be done by the software developers. Now, for Aben and for Jens, they have more capability than I do to do this. But you as managers, you as being in charge of ensuring that the proper production processes are followed, I don't think you will need to develop this level of expertise where you can read a UML diagram.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
But, however, to sum up, this is the work to build an MP3, let's say build a digital version which is compatible with Actis of the Nordic publication content, and these are the steps we have done in the past and we have to do in the future with the remaining product specification which are in line, and I'm very, very happy if you would contribute to the work we have done, and if you find time, or your editors will find time to check certain attribute values, let's say features, and say, well, in Southeast Asia it's a little bit different. So we do not see this in this way. We do see this in a different way. So then we can say, okay, we have to introduce a next revision of, let's say, definitions or whatever to reflect Southeast Asia's interest. So that's important. The world is not only, Germany. Not really.
What Jens is saying is we would love participation from Southeast Asia, but to provide participation is necessary to have a common language where we can discuss concepts and ideas. And that's where this comes in. This is the concept behind NPA. And it is important for us to know that this concept, which was developed mostly with input from Europe and North America, also works in Southeast Asia. And the only way to do that is by understanding the same language.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I would recommend that you do spend a bit of time, or whoever is responsible for Nordic publications, spend a little bit of time understanding UML. Even if you have problems with it, you should ask us, like, what does this actually mean? Because if we cannot understand it, maybe we have done something wrong.
Or a good example is the issue we have had endless discussions with definitions. Who can explain what a railway is? Find a definition of a railway. So it has to do with communication. Some hydrographic offices offer the information saying this port is very good connected with the inland railway system, let's say from China or from Japan or whatever. So, but you might have a different understanding of what a railway is than we have what a railway is. So, and to find a common definition that if we are talking or if you are defining, let's say, an attribute value which is saying communication is railway, it's important that when the mariner reads railway, then he must assume that he can find the railway and not, let's say, a draisine or whatever. So we did endless discussions at SNPVAC. Addresses. Find the correct way to write an address. So we thought in Germany we were well organized with address. We learned that we were not. So then we came up with the Americans. They said, well, we use a different way of addresses. The Japanese was saying we use an entirely different system of addresses. The UK was saying we don't have even streets, we have just building names. So, and I assume in Korea or Malaysia or whatever, they have different ways of writing addresses. So there's no harmonized way to write an address. And we have made endless loops to find a common understanding of how to provide the information about an address. So, but now I hope that we found a solution which fits all interests. But this is a hard learning curve. So if we would say, let's say the German way of writing address is the best one, then the Chinese will come up and say, well, we couldn't model our address in a way that you have done it. It's not possible for us. So please provide a different solution. And we find a different solution which might fit the Chinese interest. And then the Peruvian came up and said, well, in Peru, it will not work. We need a different one. So, and then you come up to a point where you have to find a solution, and then you make a common agreement and say, okay, this is the way how we model now addresses. And this is now being written in a definition, and we hope that everybody is interpreting this in the same way. So that is our work, what we are doing. So, and now it's time to close the session. Thank you very much.